Hello everyone, and welcome back to Void War Studios, where we continue our look into the Tau Empire. Yes, I promised, and I will continue to try and deliver as much as I can. So, I figure much like the Imperial Guard videos, we should try and start with the upper echelons of Tau society. And there is literally no upper echelon any higher than the Ethereals, the strange group of grey-skinned beings who helped unite the Tau and make them into the force they are today. They are Tau-like, but they are not the Tau, at least not exactly. They are their own caste, their own subspecies of Tau. No one's entirely sure where they came from, no one's entirely sure how they were able to do what they did, but this group of beings were able to not only stop an entire civilization from essentially murdering everyone on the planet, but on top of that, they were able to convince them to harness their abilities and use them for a greater good, the Talvar, as they call it, uniting the planet and spreading out amongst the stars. And it is rumoured, at the very least, that the Ethereals are in some way involved in the Tau's radical and rapid technological growth. Because bearing in mind, the Tau became what they were around about the time of the 37th millennium, and considering the fact that a Mechanicus ship only a few thousand years ago picked up on this place and went, there's a bunch of Tau with spears and sticks just trying to kill one another. Well, come back and conquer this planet later. It's frankly an incredible achievement. So there must be something the Ethereals have managed to do that, well, affected all this. But what exactly does an Ethereal do? So, your Ethereal is essentially the political and religious leader over all of the Tau castes. Remember in my previous video you have the Earth, Fire, Water and Air caste. Each one of these castes are specifically genetically bred for their own unique gifts, and they never get to intermingle in between one another. This is one of the strict tenures of the Tau caste. Now, the Ethereal caste is a very strange entity, because it's above all these others, and the Ethereal essentially is the politician, diplomat, and war leader in one. They make the grand decisions. The High Council of Ethereals, back on the world of the Tau, are the ones responsible for the edicts and judgments that go out across their galactic empire. And the Ethereals have a very unusual effect on the Tau. It was the Ethereals that brought the concept of the greater good to the Tau species, and in addition to this, the Tau not only believed them, but believed them with such a fervour and, well, complete conviction that it comes across as really bizarre, because the Tau Ethereals have such control over their subjects that they could order one of their citizens to murder himself and he would, without question, without thought, without pause, without any contemplation of what he was being asked to do. He would just do it to the best of his ability. And this has made Imperial scholars very nervous, because they've wondered whether the Ethereals have been using some kind of psychic ability, some kind of biomancy perhaps, or some form of telepathy. Maybe they have some gland in their body that emits a pheromone that somehow makes their words more believable. No one's entirely sure. It's one of these very strange things that has yet to be answered in the 40k lore, and the only real thing we know is that this effect seems to predominantly work around the Tau themselves. This effect can work on humans and other races, but it seems to be something that happens over a very long period of time. My personal interpretation of all that I've read is that the Ethereals use a combination of indoctrination, lots and lots and lots and lots of propaganda, essentially saying how awesome they are and how they know what best to do for the galaxy, and just a mix of that and possibly some other ability that the Tau have. During a dissection of a rather unfortunate Ethereal that got caught by an Imperial vessel, they did discover an organ in its head that they couldn't quite identify what it did, but the assumptions and predictions were it released some kind of chemical that perhaps made the Ethereal's words harder to dispute, or made it easier for them to manipulate others of a weaker mind, perhaps. All we really know for certain is that the Ethereals are predominantly the leaders of the Tau Empire that lead the various wars, conquests, and diplomatic incidents between the other races. If there is a Tau army in your system, there's a pretty damn good chance that Ethereal was the one who told it to go there. And whilst Ethereals don't like putting themselves on the front line, because whilst an Ethereal is an amazing morale booster for all the Tau around, they're also incredibly fragile, because when they die, and if they die, the Tau Empire not only goes a little bit berserk, because it's kind of the equivalent of killing the Pope in public, it's sort of a shocking revelation for them that these Ethereals even can die, but it can often crush the morale of their army to the extent where either they run like crazy and don't ever look back, or they move forward angrily, shooting as much as they can into the enemy, which, has mixed results depending on who you're fighting. And typically speaking, because of this, the Ethereals don't get involved in direct conflict. They will always be around making sure the other castes behave themselves, because it turns out that the Ethereals need to be around the tower at a relatively constant rate to make sure they don't start squabbling and or infighting one another, but they don't like to get onto the front line. They can trust the fire caste to normally handle the actual practical dirty work of the fighting. Really, the Ethereal is there to make sure the strategy is sound, and also to ensure that there is no squabbling, as I previously mentioned. And for their own personal protection, they do carry a variety of interesting weapons. The most common of these are the war blades, essentially a long-bladed halberd which serves very much like a power weapon from the Imperium. It's not really something that the Ethereal likes to use in close combat. It's more of a symbol of office than anything else, but it is more than capable of cutting through most individuals who get too close. Add to that the fact that these Ethereals often are surrounded by some form of shield drone that essentially protects them and blocks incoming bullets, guns, and all kinds of things like that. It makes for a fairly solid defense, and they are also typically surrounded by bodyguards who are equally proficient in close combat, as well as, being extra bodies to cover the Ethereal in case of too much gunfire. The other variant that an Ethereal might carry is known as an equalizer. It looks an awful lot like a baton, and they often carry them in pairs, another means of serving as a badge of office, showing that you are an Ethereal, but make fantastic percussion implements upon anyone who gets too close. Heck, they're even capable of breaking bone and shattering most forms of armor. So, how are you meant to use an Ethereal in your 40k games? Well, really it's kind of along a similar lines as an Imperial Guard commander, ironically. You don't really want him or her anywhere near the fighting if you can possibly help it. Whilst the shield drones and the bodyguards help, you really don't want this guy to be anywhere near the combat, because if you're near the combat, it's probably happening because things are going worryingly badly wrong for your Tau Empire, and the Ethereal is not meant to be on the front line. The Ethereal's meant to inspire, command, and, make the Tau Firecast think twice about running away, but yeah, they are not meant to be directly in combat, and they are certainly not meant to be too close to get shot at. That is sort of not the way Ethereal likes to conduct warfare. They are much more of the strategist kind of a individual, not really the run forward and hit them with their shiny polearm type guy. And whilst yes, they can deal with some incoming threats, it is strongly advised you do not put them in that situation on purpose. There is a reason that Ethereals use Tau commanders in their wonderful mobile suits instead of using themselves, because, mech versus squishy guy with a spear on a stick. I think I would choose to be in the mech if I were them. So whatever you do, keep this guy somewhere near the back, and use his powers and abilities to buff your other troops. Or at least, that is what I would do. Ironically, I would collect the Tau if it weren't for the fact that I just love close combat too much, and running around just shooting at things is to me just a little bit dull. Kind of explains most of my armies, really. Anywho, I hope you've enjoyed that little video, and we shall continue looking into the Tau upper echelons, following with the Tau Commander from the next one. Thank you all so much for liking and subscribing. Thank you all so much for reaching 155 subscribers. That's frankly incredible. I couldn't even dream of that many people subscribing to this channel a couple months ago, but I hope you're all enjoying the content, and I will do my best to keep it going. The house move is, well, we're still waiting for things to actually happen, so the frequency of these videos will possibly be a little sporadic, but as always, I will do my best. I hope you're all doing well wherever you are. Keep safe, avoid the stupid COVID, as much as you can at least, and I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Take care, everyone.